Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Also check me out on Twitch as Floyd Mason.
Hello, welcome back, Spooks fans. We are back for another Goosebumps book review, and this time we're going to talk about Can't Scare Me. This is one, again, that I don't really remember as a kid. I kind of knew the base premise of it, but didn't really remember much. Probably one that I just didn't own and only had borrowed. It's also the first to have like this. I don't really remember a lot of other ones with this kind of tannish color either. It's a pretty unique color choice. We'll get more into the cover later. Unfortunately, I think this is the only version of the book I have. I don't have either of the other two reprints. So I don't know if they did reprint them or what those look like, but that's the only one I have for this one. Talk about it later. But yeah, we are up to book 15. Starting to get into a bit more of a groove, I think, with his books. I mean, we'll talk about it later because there's some overlap, I feel, with this story. But, I definitely feel like he's kind of getting out of a lot of his tropes a bit. There's no moving, and it's not just, the one-off kind of, like, friend thing. Like, this one is a group of friends, which I honestly think, I'm trying to think now of, like, some of the original books. I mean, I have a list here, but not a lot of them are about a group of friends. Like, kind of The Haunted Mask a little. Like, there's the four of them, but it's really just about Carly Beth. A lot of them... Let's Get Invisible, I guess, is the... And Cheese and Die. Those two are the two that kind of stand out of, like, a group of friends. The other ones, it's usually like, the main person and, either a sibling or the one friend they made. But this one has a group of friends. So the main character in this one is Eddie. And then he has his friends Herbie, who everyone calls Hat, because he never takes off his hat. Charlene and Molly. And so this story starts off, and the whole point of it is they want to scare a girl in their class named Courtney. So she's kind of the antagonist, although, I mean, honestly, we'll get to it more in the book, but she seems like kind of the better person in the story. And her friend Denise, and Courtney is just kind of like this, perfect student. And they all kind of don't like her because of that. She does, she's one of those where she's rubs it in people's face a bit, so I get them not liking her, but, she's just a good student. She seems like a good person, like always willing to help. So they're on a field trip, and they decide that they want to scare her, is kind of the premise. So on the field trip, it kind of just starts off with the four friends just kind of teasing each other, picking on each other a bit, just kind of show, their friendship and how they interact. Because they seem like pretty good friends. And so they get there, and the teachers, kind of give them this assignment to go out and just look at and record flora and fauna. So if you see something, you see a bird, you see an animal, you see a type of tree, write it down. It's kind of their assignment. Pretty typical, I think, like middle school assignment of just nothing. But just seeing, like, if kids will do anything kind of deal, but just an excuse to kind of get them out somewhere. This starts off and just shows that Eddie just doesn't get anything. He barely writes anything down. And then they run into Courtney, and she's just got loads. Her and Denise have loads. They just saw a deer, so they wrote that down. And again, just kind of like bragging nature, which just gets under Eddie and his friend's skin. Him and Hat are messing around. He tries to push him, and Eddie falls, and he lands next to a green snake. So he's scared for a second. One of Stein's classic cliffhangers of, oh my god, he's next to a snake. And Courtney just comes by and she grabs it. And she's like, oh, like, what do you, again, just that kind of rubbing it in nature of like, oh, what are you scared for? It's a little green snake. It's not anything. So everyone starts making fun of him. So, they're kind of talking about it and they're, they're annoyed about it. And then they kind of walk away and they come back and they come around across the crowd, and she's in the middle of it, and she has like some bees have landed on her because again, she's just everything goes her way. Like she can just commune with nature. So looking at that, and she kind of flicks her arm, I think, or something like that, and kind of tosses the bees at Eddie and Hat, and they both again kind of panic. So everyone's teasing them again. So this is where the big kind of premise starts of, okay, we want to get her back. You know, she's made us look stupid twice today. You know, that Eddie was scared of the snake, that the two of them were scared of bees. So they're like, okay, we need to scare her and kind of bring her down a level. It's at this point, they kind of mention the monsters that you see on the front of the book, and kind of, you know, because it's just talking about Eddie and how scared he is, and like how he wanted to be in his brother. His brother's actually making a movie about these mudmen, which is kind of a local myth, and how he was like scared about that as well. How everyone kind of sees him as a bit of a scaredy cat. So it's kind of the first mention of them and his brother making the movie, which, you know, spoiler, is a plot point later. So they decide the first idea is that Molly has a pretty realistic snake that her brother has that he's used to scare her several times. So, you know, it's really like it's got like some kind of rubber outsiding that it almost looks like kind of slimy or slithery or whatever. You know, they're like, oh, is it real? And, you know, she's like, I've seen it before, and every time he still puts it in a drawer or whatnot, it scares me. Every time I see it, it scares me because I just, it's so realistic. I think it's real. So, you know, they think this is a great idea. She gets the snake off her brother, and their plan is to put it in her lunch at school. So it then kind of does a very quick foreshadowing that, you know, Courtney's such a good person that she usually brings 2 lunches just in case people forgot their lunch or other things like that. And so Molly puts it in her bag, and they're waiting for lunch. And the teacher, the same teacher that took them on the field trip, realizes that he had forgotten his lunch. And Courtney, being the good person she is, with the 2 lunches, says, "Oh, well, you can have some of mine. Like, help yourself." And gives him the bag. And he opens it up, sees the snake, and starts screaming. The snake falls on the ground, and Courtney immediately, no fear, steps up and stomps it. You know, she thinks she's saving him because, again, it's a huge, poisonous-looking snake, fake snake, and so she destroys it. So Molly's just like, oh my god, my brother's going to kill me. The teacher's angry, tries to figure out the rest of the day, like, who did it, but, you know, can't pin it on them. And their plan failed. Courtney looked, again, heroic in saving the teacher. So they have to go back to the drawing board. So as they're kind of thinking of what they should do, and this is like one of the weird plot points in the story, because this is the only part of the book I would feel is kind of exciting a bit. But as they're walking home, a neighbor is like, "Oh, my cat's up in a tree," and she kind of does the shitty thing of like, "Oh, you're a young boy, so you can climb up there and get it." And Eddie's just too scared to. He doesn't really know how to climb the tree, and he's a little afraid of heights. And of course, you know, Courtney comes out of nowhere. She climbs up the tree. She grabs the cat, and the woman like that saves it. Like really throws shade on him. Just like, you get your own cat. You know, like don't be sending these middle school boys up to get your cats out of trees. But again, it's just another moment that it's just showing Courtney kind of, she's not scared of anything. She's willing to climb that tree. She can grab the kitten. You know, the cat loves her and will come right to her. So this just, again, just in their minds, like, we have to do something, right? Like, she's embarrassed us again, especially Eddie, who's just like, we need to think of something. So the next idea they come up with is to scare her with a tarantula. So they kind of, you know, are like, you know, we tried the fake snake and that didn't work because it was fake. I mean, honestly, at this point, it's kind of a bad idea to me because she literally stomped that fake snake to death. So you might have her killing a tarantula, but whatever. But they're like, we need to use something, you know, it has to be realer. Like, it can't be fake. It has to be real. It has to have that effect on her. So there are some tarantulas in the science lab. And so the plan is for Eddie and Hat to sneak in and grab it. And then they will drop it on Courtney. So when they're in there taking it, Eddie is very scared of the snake. Hat doesn't mind. Like, he grabs it, puts it in a container. But as they're getting it, they hear the teacher coming. So they quickly just jump into a storage closet. Teacher comes in, grabs something, and they realize that they've stuck themselves in there and they can't get out. And they look down, and the container is open. So they start feeling the snake crawling on their leg, and so he just, you know, it's on Eddie's leg, and he finally just bashes against the door till it opens. They re-grab the tarantula, and they head out. Again, it's one of those, like, this, like, similar to the climbing the tree part. Like, you know, it's a little extra thing of, like, the scares, but I think this one works more because it's, it's building up the thing again of just Eddie getting scared in a real way. We're not like, oh, he's not climbing the tree, he's not scared, but like, I would definitely, if a tarantula was crawling on my leg, would be pretty grossed out. So that part I think really works to me, and just kind of like a little tension building in the middle where like, oh my god, he's got the snake on him, or the spider on him. But yeah, they get out of it, and Hat, he was freaked out in the locker, but as soon as they're in the open again, he just grabs it and puts it back in. So the plan is that in their gym class, the other two girls, Molly and Charlene, are going to lure Courtney kind of to the edge of the gym, and there's kind of a walkway over top of it. I always pictured the high school I went to had one of those initially, a little walkway along the top of the gym, so I kind of picture that. And again, their plan is that they will lure her to kind of stand in a certain spot, and they will reach over the top and drop the spider onto her head. So again, Hat's going to do the dropping because Eddie is scared of the spider. So the girls do a great job, and they kind of pull her to the side, and Hat drops it, and it lands on Molly. And she just starts freaking out. Charlene's also kind of freaking out. It's like Molly's just trying to get it out of her hair, and she finally knocks it on the ground, and Courtney just calmly picks it up and is like, oh, like, it's just a tarantula. I wonder where this came from. But the teacher, seeing what's going on, went upstairs and catches the two. So, I mean, Hat's just laughing when he drops on Molly. Like, I think the book Eddie asked, like, how did he miss? Like, did he mean to drop it on Molly? Like, it was so close, but, doesn't really ever get back to that why he hit Molly. I think their punishment is they have to, like, clean the science labs or something like that to get in trouble for. But now Courtney knows that they did it. And probably assumes rightly that they also did the snake. So later on, Eddie's back home, and he gets a scare from Kevin in his mud costume. Again, just kind of reminding you that exists, that plot line is a thing. Again, kind of setting up some other stuff, and he's kind of talking to his brother about something scary. And the brother suggests a scary dog. It's one of those things that, like, how can you not be scared of it? Like, yeah, like, a spider is scary, but, you might get that initial kind of it being on you, but it's not that bad. Whereas a dog could attack you. So a dog is far more scary. So Eddie's like, brilliant idea. We just need to find a dog. So they're at Charlene's house, the four of them, and he kind of brings up his plan, and Charlene suggests her dog, and her dog's like this really gentle, big dog, but super gentle and friendly, and they're like, well, that's not going to work. And she starts whistling, and the dog starts baring its teeth and kind of bearing down on them, and, kind of lunges at them, and she stops whistling and stops. So she says, like, she found out for some reason, like, the frequency of it really bothers her dog, and it drives him into a bit of a frenzy. But, they're like, wow, this is great. Like, we were terrified of him. Like, this is definitely going to work. And so they kind of just wait. First they call, like, again, another really stupid part of the book. And I guess it matters for what the plan that involves later in the book. But it's like, oh, we need to lure. There's like a little kind of, I don't know, little fort or whatever structure that apparently Courtney and Denise hang in, that's kind of in the woods, and they want to lure her there because it's like isolated and away from people so that they can scare her. So Molly calls her and pretends to be Denise, and Courtney's just like, okay, well, Denise is right beside me, so who is this? It's just kind of like, again, it's one of those like stupid moments, but it kind of comes into play later. So I guess he's doing a little bit of foreshadowing here of their call plan, but it's not really necessary. So at this point now they need to just wait. They just need to wait for a better day. I think it says like a week or so goes by. Like, it's rainy. There's not much chance of the girls going out into their wood fort when it's like bad weather. So they're kind of waiting. They get a good day, and they go out there and they kind of scout out ahead, and they see that the girls are there. So they have the dog whose name is Buttercup, the vicious killer Buttercup, and they're getting ready to do their plan, and they're all kind of getting in position, and Buttercup sees a squirrel and runs off. So Charlene starts freaking out, 'cause, they took the dog off the leash for this, like it's now lost in the woods. And so they all kind of split up and go looking for it. And Eddie actually ends up running to another dog that's growling him and kind of scares him, and it lunges at him, and Hat runs out of nowhere, shaking a stick, and kind of scares the other big dog off. It's that thing again where one thing I do like about the story is it's kind of showing like every one of their plans is backfiring kind of on them a bit. The tarantula gets on Molly. The snake, again, not against Courtney, but against the other teacher. This one, like, Eddie gets scared by the dog. So it's just kind of funny to me that, like, they keep trying to do stuff and it's backfiring. Not only just backfiring, but backfiring on themselves. So they, Hat saves him. The other dog runs off. And they get back with Molly and Charlene, and they're like, okay, we just gotta go home. Maybe he went home. Like, dogs have that sense. And they leave the woods, and they find Courtney sitting outside, and she has both dogs with her. So not only was she not scared by Buttercup, who, if you're not whistling, is a very friendly dog, but she's also easily tamed the dog that scared Eddie, and she's like, oh, this is such a sweet dog. And he's like, oh, okay. She kind of scolds him a bit for letting him off the leash, which I think is a bit mean. Like, again, it's a thing. Like, they tried to drop a tarantula on the week before, so, like, I get it. But it's just kind of like, hey, like, maybe the dog got loose, and, like, Charlene is super grateful that she, thanks her a bunch, and, like, is super grateful that she caught Buttercup. So, no reason to be rude there, but I think she has the right a bit. They finally So, there's like a little plot point here, which is this part's, I think, like the one chapter they could remove from the story. But Eddie's heading home, and he gets spooked just because of, like, it's getting dark and whatnot. And he gets home, and I think it's Molly he calls. It's either Molly or Charlene. But he's like, oh, nighttime is so much scarier. We have to scare at night. And it's like, my God. Like, obviously the nighttime is scarier. Like, I get it. And it's, they're kids and they're middle school kids. But that part's kind of dopey. It's like, oh, we have to scare at night. And it's like, you haven't scared her yet. So, I don't, I'd give up by this point. But that's Eddie's big revelation, is that, no light scarier than light. They are kind of still thinking about this and what to do, and it comes up in class that Courtney believes in monsters. I think it's like the Loch Ness monster that they're talking about specifically, but they kind of go, oh, she believes in monsters, like, we can use that, like, she's not just going to see it and not believe it. Like, she might believe that a monster exists. And this is where the mud monsters come into play. So they decide that they're going to ask Kevin and his friends to get into their makeup and scare her at night. The big night plan. So that's kind of what it's been alluding to, and just keeping the mud monsters in your mind all book, is that Kevin is making this movie, therefore he has the makeup and all of that. He agrees to do it if Eddie does a bunch of his chores for like a month or whatever. And so him and 2 or 3 of his friends are going to sneak. Their plan is that they're going to lure them out to that kind of same wood place again, and that the brother and his friends are then going to scare her. So this is when, again, so Molly's like, oh, I'm going to call her again. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? Our plan didn't work last time. She's like, don't worry, I got this. And Molly calls her and just goes, hey, it's Molly. There's mud monsters, the radio said, and does the very classic Back to the Future thing of like, oh, you don't have to come if you're chicken. Which, of course, Courtney's like, I'm not afraid of anything. Like, I'll go. And so, again, it's kind of calling back to the first call didn't work when they tried to be sneaky. So this one's just kind of like direct, like, hey, it's me, like, according to the radio, those monsters are going to be there. You said in class you believe in monsters. Like, I'm going to go check it out. You can go if you're scared. So that's how they lure them down. And, they're kind of getting approached. They're waiting for Kevin's brother. They see them kind of in their little shack or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, they see 2 or 3 mud monsters kind of rise up. It does explain at some point in the story. Basically, I think there's kind of a village along the edge of the water, and the rest of the town didn't really treat them well, and like wouldn't let them shop at the stores or whatever. And there was a big storm, a big rain, and the river basically overflowed and destroyed the village or shacks or whatever was there, and basically all the people disappeared. And the myth is that they, basically drowned and went into the mud and became mud monsters. Is kind of the myth. Is where it all comes from. They don't get into it too much, really. It's just a quick little blurb about it, but that's kind of the belief. So they're there and they're all set up, and they see the mud monsters kind of rising, and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be great." And then they turn around, and Kevin and his friends are there, and they had gotten a flat tire, and they were late, and that is not them. So at this point, Eddie and his friends run out, and they start, they see more Mudmen, because, at first they only saw 2 or 3, so it's like, oh, that's clearly Kevin's friends, but then there's a bunch more, and so they run out, and they just, Courtney and Denise are not looking, they're kind of behind them, so he just starts yelling, run, mud monsters, and the girls turn and see him, and they are finally scared, and they run off, and everyone just kind of runs away. This kind of thing. But the next day at school, Courtney's just bragging about how she saw them, not acting scared at all. And Eddie just kind of goes, I give up. So they kind of give up, and that's that. They can't scare her. I mean, they kind of did with the mud monsters, but they were all so scared that that's just it. So that's the book. This one has some interesting things about it. Things I like and things I don't. I think the premise for it is a pretty decent story. A pretty decent idea of, they've been scared by her. She's kind of like the perfect class example. And so they want to scare her. I think a lot of the pranks, I think they escalate at a good pace. Kind of, okay, fake snake to real spider to real more dangerous animal to kind of using a local myth. And getting other people involved. I think that's a good escalation. I think they kind of plan it out well. There's definitely some dumb parts, the first, which always happens, right? These kids' books, right? There's a little padding at points, her calling her and Denise being there. The part with the cat in the tree is kind of, we've already established in the initial thing with the bees and the snake that Courtney's much braver than them. So I don't. It just seemed like a moment for an adult to trash a child for not climbing a tree. Things like that. But what really sinks this book for me is the same problem that, and what's that one called? The Mummy, whatever the Mummy one is. Book 5. Is that this book is grounded in reality, and then just jumps to supernatural as a solution. So I actually, and we'll get, but the cover as well. But I like with this cover, right? It looks like there's going to be monsters or something like that in it. But when you're reading it, it's kind of okay, it could be Kevin. It could be Kevin and his friends. That's what they're alluding to. They kind of foreshadow it, and you're like, oh, when they mentioned the start of the book, you, even as a child, it's well, use the Mudmen. And, they have to escalate and they have to get there. But it kind of foreshadows in that Kevin's making this movie, and they bring it up as oh, Eddie was too scared of that even to kind of just bring it up there, but without you being direct oh, this is a scary thing, which I think is well done. But with the front of the cover, you don't really know. But it's one of those ones again where I don't mind, there's the supernatural stuff, something like the Haunted Mask. I feel like it just works with it, where it's very clearly at the start, the first time she goes there, there's something with these masks. They're hidden away. She gets an eerie feeling from them. That it's kind of okay, something's wrong with this mask. With the ghost next door, right? She's dead, but it kind of establishes it in a good way. It kind of builds the backstory of what happened to her. So the supernatural things in those ones work. I don't like the books where it just jumps to a supernatural solution. Because it's that you're supposed to kind of realize that is a not a myth to start with. To me, I think it would have been funnier if that happened and Kevin's sorry, we were late, and it all scares them, and the end of the book was Kevin meeting with some of his other friends, and he had got extra friends out and they had just scared his brother. I think that would have been a much funnier ending, especially as somebody with siblings and whatnot, of scaring them, that it's a real thing. Books that have more grounded things, Again, even with the supernatural mixed in, like a say cheese and die, where obviously you have the mystical part that doesn't make sense, but they establish that like it exists, so whatever. It's not a twist at the end of the book. But like that it's grounded in kind of the reality of stuff. Like this is one of the realer books. So like these are things that kids would do, right? Like using a spider or using a dog to try and scare somebody who has made them kind of look foolish. So with that all being said, I'm going to give this book a B. Again, I like a lot about it. I like a lot of the setting. I think the character and like kind of their dynamic is really good. I think Courtney is kind of, again, she seems like the better one of them because she's just a girl being good and nice, and they're trying to scare her. But I think she's well written. It would probably be an A, but the twist at the end drops it to a B, which I think is the same one as I gave the Mummy's Curse. And it's the same thing. Great setting, pretty good story, and just the supernatural end throws me a bit because it's just like, well, it's one of those ones that's like it's hard to guess, which always feels bad, like when you can't solve a mystery because like they left out key information. But it's also one of those ones that's like, well, I would have felt cheap guessing that because like, who would have guessed that like, yes, the Mudmen are real. Apparently none of them knew it. Like the girls hang out at this clubhouse all the time and like no one's ever seen it. Like it, they just seem to come out of nowhere for a myth that's well known in an area that's heavily, as far as I know, heavily populated. People can go to this park all the time or woods or whatever they are. So it's going to go to B. As for the cover, I think this one is pretty cool. I mean, like, the Mudmen's pretty grotesque. I'm going to give it... I wrote something down, but I honestly think I'm going to switch it. I initially given it an A, but I think I'm actually going to bump up to an S. I love, like, the open mouth. So creepy. Just the color behind it, like all the red, looks really, really eerie. And again, I think what's just changed my mind is when I was reading it, I hadn't thought about it as much, but I do love the ambiguity because it is telling you what happens at the end of the book. But because it's built up that Kevin and his friends are making this movie and, they get to the point where they're going to scare them, it's like, okay, you're looking at it and it's like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Like, that's what's going on until you actually read the end and there's real monsters. So even though I don't like the monsters, like, I think that this book gives a good view into what happens without it being too obvious because of other reasons. So I think I'm going to bump that one up to an S. It's pretty good. Again, the color around too is pretty unique and I think matches kind of the rest of it as well. So I'm just going to up and change that. I definitely, if I had to bet, and I mean we'll see at the end when I get through them all, but I would bet that I give more covers an S than books an S. Which, I mean, I've given the last two covers S's. So maybe I'm going too easy on them, but I honestly think that a big part of why Goosebumps got as much fame and kind of know as well is when you saw the covers in a store, you wanted the book. I think the cover art is such a big piece of why Goosebumps did so well, because the stories are good. Like, they're quite good. Even as an adult, I'm enjoying them. Not all of them are great, but they've all been enjoyable. You can read it in half an hour, really. Just kind of get through it. Like, it's a little light read if you want to get your brain going, but you don't want to do anything too straining. They're fun. Yeah, that's going to do it for this one. So up next is One Day at Horrorland, which would be a fun one to talk about. It's one of those classics. I think I'd have to look at my wall up there, but I think it's one of the last real classics. Like, there's definitely ones later that stand out. There's obviously, like, there's ones too, like The Haunted Mask 2 really comes to mind, but again, it's kind of a sequel to one of the bigger ones. So it kind of stands out, but I think within the first 16 are kind of the big ones, unless I'm really not thinking about one or two. So we're going to get more into uncharted territory, where ones I've just been less exposed to, ones that you don't see as much in media, so I've kind of forgotten about. And so I'm excited to just kind of keep reading and get into those. Hopefully I can make a little more time so you're not waiting so long between videos. But that's it from me. Thanks everyone for checking this video out. Again, I suggest if you want something light to read, like these are good. They're a good time. Like they're definitely kids' books. That is what it is. But especially if you've read them before, they're a real great blast from the past. And trying to think about remember your first time reading them and what you were thinking during that time.
Thanks for watching. Please click to check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and come by Twitch under Floyd Mason to join my live streams.